Welcome to Unemployed and Afraid, a podcast that explores the glorious mess of building your own business with the people doing it. I'm your host and fellow business builder, Kim Curtin. Thank you for being here. Let's get into some good, honest, small business chat. Hello, listener. This is Unemployed and Afraid, the stories of amazing businesses being built at all levels and the brave people behind them. I am so stoked you're here because it means you're investing in yourself and getting the encouragement you need to keep going and continuing to build your own. No small feat, and you've picked a great episode. Well, they're all great, obviously, but the key takeaway for me from this chat is the endless need to stay open to change and new ideas in this gig. That could mean adding services, shifting pricing models, putting yourself out there in new ways, and getting to the other side of imposter syndrome. All of the things that just makes for such a powerful conversation and sharing, and doing all of this for nothing else but the sake of your business and being able to continue. And if that's where your head is at right now, we have absolutely got you. The wonderful Jen Bishop is an incredibly engaging human. And as you listen to my chat with her and learn all about the process of building her business, Interiors Addict, which is amazing, you'll hear about that in a moment, you're going to hear about creating a business where the potential might not be obvious, getting comfortable with the sell, tough one, stepping into a new field based on passion, never closing off from diversification, task switching at an unprecedented level, and being cautious of over-delivery and over-discounting in a contracting market. Every week there is an episode for you, listener, and it's something that's designed to help you keep going and building a business you're proud of. If you love it, if you love this podcast, make sure you're following the show and please tell someone else about it. It helps the show to grow and to continue showing up for you each week like we do. Let's get into the chat. I'm here with Jen Bishop, founder of leading home and renovating site Interiors Addict, that you may have seen featured in Better Homes and Gardens, Life Interiors, ABC, Channel 10, and loads more. Interiors Addict is a playground for, yep, you guessed it, the love of glorious interiors, building to become a content powerhouse with a six-figure audience on platform each month and a huge following across the socials. This broad reach has been tapped into by smart brands from small businesses right through to IKEA, West Elm, Freedom, Dulux, and even non-interiors brands such as ING and Amazon to have Jen tell their stories. And not just that, all that amazingness, Jen is also a brilliant writer for and comms consultant to small business owners and brands. Jen creates ebooks, lead magnets, founder profiles, about pages, press releases, media articles, and much more for the partners she works with, and can also help you work out what's newsworthy about you and your brand, thanks to decades of being pitched to as an editor and knowing what makes us stand out. We do love a business human with multiple offerings on the go and cannot wait to hear all about it. Jen, welcome to Unemployed and Afraid.
Thank you so much for having me and for the lovely introduction.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure. There is so much more I could have said in that intro because I am just absolutely enthralled by your story, as I know that the listener will be too. And just to get behind Jen, though, a little bit behind Jen and who Jen is as a human, I'd love to know how your husband Damien might describe you.
That is a great first question. I think he would probably, if we're honest, describe me as a bit of a control freak and probably say I was a bit bossy in terms of how I won't let him have a say in anything that comes in the house.
I mean, if I had you in the house, Jen, I certainly wouldn't be bringing in anything myself either. I'd be fully reliant on you.
I tell him just you don't need to worry about that stuff. Leave it to me.
So how did you end up at the precipice of this interiors design and just amazingness with Interiors Addict? How did you even get here?
Oh, I mean, it's quite a long story, but my background is all in journalism. So I was a journalist from the age of 18 and I worked on a variety of newspapers. This was back in the UK where I'm from. So I worked on a variety of newspapers. I was a crime reporter and then moved on to a few different magazine jobs in the UK. That included working at New Scotland Yard for the Met Police, which was a really fascinating job. And then I eventually, in 2008, decided to come to Sydney for a year. Obviously, that's now a lot longer ago than 1 year. And I came here, started working, got my first job as sort of editor of a business magazine. which doesn't exist anymore, but it was a print magazine called Dynamic Business. And I loved that job, but my real passion was for interiors. And I never actually had a job writing about interiors. It was just like my hobby. And I think my husband Damien likes to say it was his idea that I set up a Tumblr to just keep all my interior stuff together. So I wasn't sort of boring everyone else with it, I think. And somehow that turned into something that I just was so passionate about and spent so much time on. It was just a hobby. It was just for fun. And then sort of people started reading it. And long story short, about 18 months later, when I got made redundant from that business magazine job because the print side closed down, lots of people started saying to me, why don't you try and make that into a business? That could be a job. And I was just like, come on, don't be ridiculous. You can't make I had quite a senior role. I was like, I can't make that kind of money out of a blog. I was planning my wedding and things like that. And I just thought, I don't know, enough people said it to me that it gave me a bit of a nudge, had a bit of a redundancy payout. And I thought, you know what, I'll give this 6 months, see if I can make it, see if I can monetize. No idea what I was doing really. And yeah, I think we're now, more than a decade later, it's still my job. So that's the short version.
It's a wonderful version. I always find that opinion of others, that repetitive opinion of others, that thing you hear a few times. Why don't you do this? You're really great at this. If this is such an interest point, why don't you explore it a little bit more? Such a beautiful pathway to follow, and one that we often talk ourselves out of so easily.
It's so true. And I think because a lot of those people in my ear were business owners themselves, they were the people that I was interviewing to tell their stories in the magazine. I thought, well, these people, I respect their opinion because they know about business. So not that I even thought about it as a business at that point. It was just, can I turn this into, I guess, some kind of freelance kind of thing? But yeah, I'm very glad I listened. And I have thanked some of those people over the years for giving me that push, because I'm a very risk averse person. So I don't know whether I would have done it otherwise.
So as a risk averse person, then facing not quite the blank page, given that you had all of this amazing imagery on said Tumblr, but facing the blank page of then taking that from an audience that's been engaging with your content and something you're really passionate about to something that can bring you in a line of revenue. Where did you get started in that thinking?
Well, I guess I changed my mindset a little when I realized that what I was doing at the business magazine, where I'd started as the editor and then become the publisher in a 5-year period, I was actually working across the editorial side of things, so the content, and I was also managing the sales team. So I had also become quite commercially savvy in terms of how you bring the money into it, publishing. So at some point, I just thought, you know what, I do this at work, or I did this in my day job. I just have to take all of that and just transfer it really to a different topic. And then I started looking at it differently, that this is actually a gift. I'm actually taking everything I've learned in this day job and I'm going to use it in this business that I can create for myself, which is writing, which is what I'm good at, about interiors, which is what I love. And then it started to get exciting. It was like, oh, if I could make this work, this would be so amazing. So that was really the motivation. If I can make this dream job work and make money, why wouldn't I give it my best shot?
Absolutely. What was it like then to go to that commercial side of your mind and that commercial side of your potential business model here and start to reach out to partners? How did you approach that process, and what did it look and feel like for you trying to present something to those people?
In a lot of ways, a lot of it was incoming from the start, which is very lucky. A lot of brands, I think, saw that it was going somewhere and thought, let's jump on that in the early days because it's going to be cheaper at the beginning. I think there was a lot of that. And then, it was just having to cold pitch to people. And that was very, very awkward to start with, because I was very comfortable to approach really well-known interior designers and say, can I tell your story? And people are flattered and they say, yeah, of course, I'd love to be written about. But to then go to people and say, can I have some money for an ad? I did find it quite difficult, but I just had to do it because I sort of gave myself this 6-month deadline. If you can make enough, if you can start making the same money that you were making in your day job in 6 months, which in hindsight's not very long, but that's what I told myself. Then, yeah, so I just kind of had to do it. In my magazine job, we'd worked with this agency. They were like a third party outsourced agency, and they were at one point selling all the advertising space in the magazine. And we had an online version, and they sort of sat up and started to take notice. And they said, how's it going? And what are your numbers? And I really don't know what the numbers were at the time. I feel it was something like 30,000 readers or something a month. And they basically said that's enough for us to have a crack. Like we would have a go at selling your ads for you. I thought, brilliant, because this is not the fun part. And so they started doing that. And at the time, that was probably 2013, 14, that was the time where people were buying display ads. And so they were like my middleman, and they would speak to the middleman of the brand, sell the ads. They gave me the opportunity to work with them on a commission-only basis. So as a one-man band, that was actually really appealing. It was like, okay, I don't need staff, but I can have these experts selling my ads, and I just pay them. It was a lot of commission. It was 40%. But at the time, it worked really, really well for me as a solo startup person. So that worked well for a while, and I haven't worked with them for a long time now. Things have changed over the years, and these days I do all of that myself. But that was a really great way to kick things off for the first couple of years.
What's it like now doing it yourself? How does that change how you feel about the day-to-day of the business?
It's interesting. There's pros and cons, because the pros are no one takes 40%. That's a great pro. Yep. The cons are I have to do all of that, sometimes quite cringy, salesy, pitchy stuff. However, my personal brand is such a big part of Interiors Addict that I really do think that I'm the best person to sell the brand and to convince people why they should work with us. So I have a love-hate with it. I love making the sale. I love working with people on helping them, with suggestions of how's the best way we could work together. You've got this much money to spend. This is how I think you can best speak to the audience. I love when I get the sale. It's a buzz when you lock someone in and you get the money over the line and that's going to you. But yeah, it can be, some days it's hard work selling, but I think I'm quite good at it, but it doesn't mean I like it, if that makes sense.
It does. And I think it's quite unique to find somebody who is equal part passionate about creating content and can also apply that, maybe not the same level of passion, but the level of skill set and commitment to the sales side. I think any small business that grows into a medium, into a large business, any scale of business, there's that element of sell that we have to do, whether it's, through the marketing messaging or the hard sell, straight into clients. All of these sales skills are so very important and often, I think, underappreciated in that process. So it's really interesting to hear how that side of your skill set became so much more important. How do you think your sales skills have evolved over the years?
I think I've probably become more confident to, just approach a cold call or email, because I am a lot more confident of what I can offer people. I've been doing it for a long time. I've got a track record. With digital, you can prove a lot of things. So if people want to know numbers and things like that, you can show them all of that evidence, which I like. And yeah, I just think people do appreciate dealing with the person that is going to create their content for them. So whilst I don't do all the writing by any stretch anymore, all the content that people read on Interiors Addict, generally the majority of the time, if someone is paying for that content, it will be me that does it. It doesn't get outsourced to someone more junior. And I think people find that quite a nice streamlined relationship. They phone up, they say, we've got this much money. We talk about how they can use that budget, and then I'm the one that actually follows through, maybe interviews them for a blog post, creates some social content for them. So I guess it's quite streamlined, and people like the fact that they've got that direct contact. It's me they're going to deal with a lot of the time.
And of course, you are such a passionate human around all of these, beautiful interiors and homewares structure. And as you mentioned, it's combining, what you're good at in terms of writing with what you love in that interiors design. And I've also seen you talk when I was researching you, talk about you've combined those two things, but still have that element of quote unquote not being trained in it, which I find really interesting because I think so many business owners, potential happy humans hold themselves back from that happiness for that fear of not having the training credentials or in your instance, years in interior design and then moving into this space, that story we sell ourselves about what it should look like. And I'd love it if you could talk to me a little bit about that journey of creating such an incredible business in something that you're not formally trained in. What's that been like for you?
It has been interesting because I think in the early days, I felt a bit of pushback from the industry because I'm not an interior designer. I have no interior design qualifications. When you think about it, it is quite bizarre for some chick that used to write news and business to suddenly start writing about interior design. Is, not even from Australia, and suddenly putting myself out there as this kind of voice for interior design. And I definitely did feel a bit of pushback in the early days, and it was very hard to keep that imposter syndrome in check. But I think that changed because people in the industry realized that I was actually there to showcase them, that I could promote them. I was talking about the industry in a positive way. And then, it's actually quite a unique thing. It makes me different to other publications because I am not an interior designer. And I think I'm very clear about that. I don't try to pretend that I am. And my audience is a very mainstream audience of people that love homes and they love interiors. And a lot of them are just like me. They have homes with children and mess and pets, but they still want it to be nice. They don't want it to be ridiculously high-end designer, but they don't want it to be the same as everyone else that's all from a high street store. They're somewhere in the middle. And I think I'm relatable because I'm not. So I think my audience love that I am like them. So I sell that really to brands. I'm relatable. They want to be like me because I'm not qualified. I'm just someone that loves to have a nice home and wants to feel happy in their home. So yeah, in the early days, more negative and, lots of feelings like, well, what am I doing? And people aren't going to take me seriously. And now completely owning it, really. I'm not trying to say that I'm that. I am trying to say I'm just like you. and I guess as well, what I am is a journalist. So I'm writing. I can write. I can create content. I feel confident about that. That is what I'm trained to do. So I just happen to be creating that content about something that I love.
It's such an intelligent perspective, and one I think a number of people, when I just think about the failure rate in businesses and those who do want to try and create a business structure around something that they're hugely passionate about, because it's such a rich opportunity to create, life and work that feels really, really meaningful, that don't let themselves get to that phase because that first part is I feel so ugly inside. Like it feels so challenging to face that fear every day of being, what if I'm not taken seriously? What I can't do this because of this. All of those stories, it's so beautiful to hear about getting through that other side of it, to be able to regain that perspective and go like, no, this is actually a strength, being able to have this perspective, which is the perspective of the ideal customer that all of those brands want to speak to anyway, who they're selling to, as opposed to that kind of, influential person in the field doing all of the selling for them. So I think it's really intelligent to be able to perceive it that way, and something that stops so many people from progressing with their business, some not even getting started, but some sort of dropping along the journey. And you've had quite a long journey in that. Do you think there was something in particular that allowed you to shift from that early mindset of I'm feeling a bit of imposter syndrome here into that more, no, I'm owning this and this position?
I think once it just started to, I guess, it just organically, it was just the business was taking off, in terms of people wanted to read it and people were coming to me asking to be on it. And it just made me think, well, if people want to give me their money and if people want to give me their eyeballs and they want to read it, who cares if there's a few snooty people out there in the design industry that are saying, who's that? Who does she think she is? Or I didn't really care anymore because, in a way, I mean, I obviously care about making money. It's a business, but I really care about my readers, and they don't give me money, but I care about them, and I was giving them what they wanted and they were happy with it. So I was that just kept me going, I guess.
It's a wonderful perspective. And I don't know if it's a particularly Australian thing. Perhaps my overseas listeners will be able to write to me and tell me some of this. But I think in Australia in particular, that kind of tall poppy syndrome we talk and joke about. And, that sort of, I have an episode I was just working on, and we talked about the confidence problem that seems to exist in Australia where, we have that mix. So it's kind of that confidence we maybe lack in ourselves for some reason as a broad sweeping statement. And then also the tall poppy syndrome where we see someone doing well. And I don't say we as in we aren't doing this, but quite the opposite here as per this pod. But there are so many people out there willing to be like, oh, who do they think they are doing this, and feel confident to cut other people down, which is a really sad state of affairs because we're all here to make our mark on the world and do great work that we love and we do. It's a strange phenomena, isn't it?
It really is. And I hate to say it, but I do think as women, we are particularly bad at that, at holding ourselves back, at worrying about what other people think. And, I may sound like I, just bravely screw them, I'm doing what I want to do, this kind of thing. But of course, there is always an element of faking it till you make it, of just cracking on with it and maybe having those niggles and those feeling a bit yuck about it, but just carrying on anyway. And definitely these days, really genuinely couldn't care less if anyone was out there saying, I'm sure going to need design qualifications. I'd be like, so what? I never said I did.
Yes, I love that. I'm channeling that energy. So I'm so here for it. You talk about loving your readers and, their eyeballs being the most important part about it. So, you do have, from my perspective, 3 very big buckets of attention requirements in your business. So serving your audiences, so that kind of creating content aspect and then also building that audience. So finding new eyeballs and reaching people. So the marketing side, and then the monetization part as well. How do you both balance? And I do cautious even using that word because who has balance in business, right? Really. But how do you approach working on each element of those to build what I see as 3 very important things all at once?
I mean, I don't do everything myself, and I do, I've had various levels of help and employees and contractors and different levels of assistance, I guess, throughout the years. And it's very lean now. In fact, probably is about as lean as it's ever been since back in the day when it was just me. So now we've got a part-time writer, Amy, and Jody, who basically does all of the admin and the organizing side of things that I would be useless at without her. So it isn't just me, but yeah, it is a balancing act and I think it depends on how business is, how easy it is to juggle. So when business is slow, it's very easy to get completely sucked into the selling and the hustle, which is why it's good that I do have someone else doing a lot of the content, so that isn't going to slip. Because, the audience are really important because yes, they don't give us the money, but if we didn't have their eyeballs, the brands wouldn't give us the money. And it is a very challenging thing to have, I feel, these 2 lots of people I'm serving, the clients and the brands and the readers, because you need them both. And really, if I didn't need to make the money, I'd be all about the readers because I love my readers and I would spend all my time just making them happy and no time selling because I love them and I feel a real connection with them. I chat to my readers in my Instagram DMs all the time. I send newsletters, people reply and have a chat. It's very, very connected and very friendly and feels very friendly and is a beautiful thing, really. It's a really nice part of what I do. But yeah, sometimes I do need to drag myself out of one or the other. Okay, Jen, all you're doing this week is hustling. You really need to go and talk to your readers. You really need to go and put your face out there on an Instagram, something or other. And then other times okay, Jen, get off your phone and get into your emails and getting some more bookings in. It's a constant. I don't think I have the answer. It's a constant jungle, but I am very aware of this kind of dual focus. They're both important and always have to be important and looked after.
Yeah, I really understand that juggle in the, I have to laugh when you say get out of your phone, because sometimes I have to have that same little talk to myself. So get out of there and get into doing something else completely, please.
Yes.
And so you mentioned your staff there as well. What has that experience been like working with people over the years, bringing people into the business, bringing on that element of leadership as well to add that to the mix in small business is obviously such a big challenge. How has that been for you?
Mm. At the moment, and for the last few years, it's been incredibly easy, to be honest, because the two people I'm working with now, and there are a few other people, like there's David that looks after all the tech side of things. But in terms of the people he kind of does that all behind the scenes. I don't have to think about it very often. But in terms of Amy and Jody, I've worked with these incredible women for both 6+ years now. So that's kind of like at least half of the time I've been in business. So the level of trust and the level of understanding each other is so high now. If I forward an email, I almost don't need to say what's this for or what I want done, because they know. So that's lovely. I do remember when I took on my first employee, Olivia, when I was pregnant with my first child. He's now about to turn 9. It was absolutely terrifying, to be honest. The thought of having an employee, all of the obligations that go with that. It seemed very grown up and very serious, and also just felt like this huge responsibility to be giving someone money every month that would be paying for their rent and their life. I really need to make sure I could keep paying this person. And it was great, actually, but it was all of those first steps are very scary. And even before that, I think the first time I actually thought about taking someone on, a few hours a week, terrifying, but such a game changer when I finally did let go a little bit and let someone else help. So yeah, it's been all kinds of levels over the years, from having the agency working for me. Then they actually went out of business, and I did employ someone that used to work for them on a part-time basis. And there's been all these different levels of, like I say, of sort of contractors or employees over the years. But it's in a really lovely sweet spot now with people that have been with me forever, feels like.
I almost feel a sense, and probably the listener feels this too, that sense of like joyful jealousy for you, and then reflecting it back and being like, wow, imagine if somebody had like the inside of my brain. Like I could just forward on an email and you get what it is that's going on. Like what a gift to be able to develop that kind of relationship with someone. I can't wait for that moment.
Yeah, it's great. I'd be lost without both of them.
Now, I mentioned up front in the bio that you are now also, on top of this incredible brand you've built, writing and consulting to small business owners. So why this addition?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, like everyone in the last 12 at least months, the economy is a very unpredictable thing at the moment. And I just think that as business owners, you've almost got to be one step ahead. Okay, things are going well, but what if things dry up? What if, I can't make as much money as I have been making? And certainly for me, I'll be quite honest about it. Like the last year has been tough in business, and it's not that I am not making as much money. It's really, really hard work to get that money in. And the level of people aren't prepared to make a 12-month booking or a 6-month booking anymore. So the money's there, but it very much comes in, one-offs, 2-month bookings, that kind of thing. So I started thinking, as a risk-averse person, because I still am a very risk-averse person, how else can I make money? Diversification is always a good idea. What else could I be doing just to safeguard that, really? Because when you've built a business up and for this long, you're not prepared to let that go because of the economy. There'll always be struggles in business. COVID was a grand example of that. But yeah, it just got me thinking, what am I good at? What can I do easily that I enjoy and I'm good at? And I thought, writing. and also helping people understand how to sell their story to media, I guess. So what makes them newsworthy. So I'm not, again, not saying I'm a PR person, but as someone who's been pitched to for decades in different capacities on magazines and online publications, I know I know what gets over the line, and how to make a journalist say, yes, actually, I'll give you that free coverage. So I started to offer that as a service and to help people with writing, because I think a lot of people really struggle with writing. And if you're a writer and you love writing and it comes easily, it's really hard to understand how everyone can't just do that, but they can't. And, there's some very clever people with really great stories to tell that can't tell them themselves with the written words. So yeah, just put it out there really to help. I think I love small business and I love the idea of helping small business owners. So I put it out there as quite a niche sort of service to help small business owners with anything they need written. So, yeah, like you said, ebooks and award entries and customer testimonials and all these kind of things. And I absolutely love it. Like, it's just so fun for me to put people's stuff into words and, into a certain word count and things like that. So I've actually really enjoyed writing for other people rather than just writing about people to go on my publication. It's a very different kind of writing. So I've really been enjoying that.
I love that frame of the diversification and never losing sight of what can come into your world, what diversification you can bring in order to keep going, because that's so much of the challenge as a business owner, is to just keep showing up every day and riding out the times that are really challenging and bringing in new offerings that feel something for you, but also give you a little bit more of that comfort that, we can make money when we need to, and we have a lot of fantastic skills, and it's even better when those skills can support other people to do great work. I think it's a really nice reminder that, not to, what's the saying? Cut off our nose to spite our face when it comes to what can potentially keep you moving every single day and keep you in business, essentially. Like, we've got to do what we have to do to just keep showing up.
Exactly. And I think that in these harder times, it's very easy to just freeze or to just get caught up in this kind of panic or worry. And it can, you can find yourself having days where you're just sort of like, oh, I don't know what to do. Things feel really slow or things like that. But I just think that you're never going to move forward from just sort of sitting there worrying about it. So yeah, I decided to just kind of have a crack at something else. And now it's actually quite hard fitting all of that in, but that's a great problem to have.
I love that you just described that feeling of like almost freeze in that fight flight mode and then the freeze mode. And I think there's nothing more freeze-like than the fear of financial security. I've definitely experienced that myself, when you're like, I have all these great ideas and all of these things that I want to do and all these things I could do that are probably going to result in a business uplift in some way. But that just underlying thing of, I just really also need that one email to come in that says actual revenue on the bottom line, or I really just need to shift the needle on that P&L to just like lift it a little bit over here. Like, that doesn't just disappear. And that really can give you that freeze, that's kind of stop. I don't know what to do. I've definitely had that feeling before. So I think good on you for taking those steps and looking at those amazing skills that you have that are always there, those skills that often, we push to the side once we get into this new piece of business that we're doing, to be able to bring that back in. And you mentioned it filling up your days now. So what other challenges is it bringing to you, having all of these things at once?
Yes, it is bringing other challenges because, it's more work, which is great. But, if that continues, I'm going to have to seriously think about how to, I guess, better split my time and how I should be splitting my time. And if I potentially need to get some more help in either side of the business. But again, that would be a good problem to have. But the other challenge is very different mindset to the two different kinds of work. One morning I might be selling to a brand or discussing with a brand their campaign, which is going on Interiors Addict, and how, we're going to speak to our readers about them. And then in the afternoon, I might be doing some work for a business owner, for example, a surgeon who's nothing to do with interiors, but we're talking about their marketing copy and written things for them, which are talking to their audience, which is extremely different. And it's just a different focus, and it's a very different kind of writing that then has to be approved by them. And you might have to, be writing in as them. You might be, in character, as I call it, writing in that you've got to know their tone of voice, and you're writing in their tone of voice. So there's a lot of, oh my goodness, chopping and changing. And then the next day, perhaps you're writing I've been doing a lot of entries for interior design awards, entries for interior designers. And that is, again, it's writing about interiors, but it's answering very specific questions in very specific word counts. And so there's a lot of, different parts of the brain and different levels of focus required. But I think with anything, you get into your groove with these things, but it's still that part of the business is still relatively new. So I'm still finding the flow, I think, with that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think what can't be underestimated is the fatigue, like the creative fatigue or just the thinking fatigue. I know I feel that a lot because when I'm in my strategy side, working with brands on their podcasts, and I'm putting all these inputs in of consumer insights and cultural insights and brand insights, try to make ideas, all of these things, like the brain is tired for doing this. You don't see a lot of work being produced sometimes in those sorts of fields, but it's like all percolating around, like getting ready to go out somewhere. That mental fatigue and just like, I've got too many things going on swirling around in my head right now must be exhausting. How do you give yourself a little bit of support and a little bit of resourcing to make sure that your creative energy is maintained?
Well, I am a big fan of taking a bath every single night, which a lot of people make fun of me for and say, oh, that's so British that you always have a bath. But it is that is my mental health thing. I really struggle to not end my day with a bath, with a really hot, bubbly, long bath. And I call it, it's my mental health bath. I love it. And yeah, but I guess as well, like as corny as it sounds, just being off work and having young kids, you kind of have to be present with young kids, and you have to get out of work mode and get into mum mode, which is going to be, silly and playing and very different. So I think, I do school pickup every day, and I just snap into mum mode, and that kind of gets me out of work. And yeah, I haven't worked at weekends for a very long time. I would say, since I've had kids, I've been very strict on not working weekends. So, you have boundaries. And I also have great business owning friends who, I talk to all day long on WhatsApp and on voice memos. And that's really just a great way to not get bogged down in your own head, to talk about things and to maintain that kind of healthy mental health side of things. And I think that is really important as business owners, not to get too stuck in our own heads or to get too consumed with work, and to really keep a check on, yes, we love our businesses and it's great being your own boss, but it's not the be all and end all. And I think it's really good to put it in perspective and make sure you have balance of some kind. Not to say that mine is perfect by any stretch, but, it's a constant work in progress.
Makes a lot of sense. This is a hugely personal question. I am fascinated by people who take baths. Now, do you read or not read in the bath? Are you podcasting? Like, talk me through this, because as someone who is like, I don't know, I've got too much energy. I can't sit still. I'm like, I get bath bored really, really quickly. So I'm fascinated.
I get it. I can't lie in the bath and do nothing. No way. I would go crazy that really doesn't sound very balanced, does it? And I also can't have a 1 hour massage. It's too long. It's too long to be quiet, and it's too long to stay still. But in the bath, I do read and I do scroll. And yes, I have dropped phones in the bath. So yeah, I make sure I pick those waterproof, phones that can withstand a drop in the water. And yeah, I might have a cup of tea, I might have a glass of wine. It is quite a ritual. I always have bubble bath. I couldn't just lie there and do nothing though. That would drive me crazy.
Okay, this brings me some comfort and is really good to know. I think you and I differ on the massage part. I think one of my business goals and reasons for unashamedly being focused on generating a significant personal wealth, because I do have ambitions, to be able to look after family and be able to give back and be able to invest in other people and all of those wonderful things. I also just really want to have enough free money for like a good 90-minute massage every fortnight.
Sounds
It is
good.
heaven.
Mine would just be like half an hour, maybe half an hour a week.
I like that. I like that. Frequency up, but duration down. It makes a lot of sense. What are you reading at the moment? What's on your read list? What's helping you?
Oh goodness. I can I go get it?
Of course you can. Yes, I can never remember. I write it down on my phone.
Had a feeling it might come up. At the minute, I'm reading The Health Habit by Dr. Amantha Imber. And yes, it's shape up, sleep better, and feel amazing. So it's about building healthier habits. And there's a lot in there about sleep. And sleep is something I'm really not very good at. So I'm finding that really useful. And yeah, I've been quite into health the last year or so since I had a couple of health scares, and so I find all of that stuff really interesting now.
What's keeping you up at the moment?
I don't think anything keeps me. I have no problem going to sleep. I just have and I think it's very common, people that wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and there's something about that 3 a.m. And I think I've always been a light sleeper. And actually, talking to my dad, I feel like maybe it's some kind of family trait for light sleeping. And I honestly don't wake up worrying. I'm not worrying, but I just cannot get back to sleep. So I'm trying to, look at all those different ways to improve my sleep. And yes, I do know I should be putting my devices down like an hour before bed. And I definitely don't do that because it's just, I don't know, scrolling is part of my job. It's very hard to stop.
I totally understand this. And I'm a fellow 2 to 4 a.m. wake upper. I have a very strict sleep schedule in terms of phone and ritual and all those things. But sometimes, as much as hard as I try, that 2 to 4 a.m. window is just like, it's like small business panic zone or something. You wake up and the brain is churning around a million ideas, and then you're thinking, oh no, now I'm going to be useless tomorrow and I've got all these things I need to do. I think it's something that will be shared by many people to understand that frustration. What do you hope to achieve in the coming short term, keeping in mind what you're talking about in terms of clients in the market who are less likely to think of commercial partnerships in 6 to 12-month blocks? I guess that's something that we have to take on board as small business owners to think a little bit maybe more short to, medium term. What do you hope to achieve in that short to medium term?
Whenever people ask me this question, actually, about what do I want to achieve with my business in the next 12 months or the next however many months, is I always just very, very simply want to continue to have this as my job. So I am always striving to keep my business going because I can't imagine doing another job, especially not for someone else. So I guess it's just, constantly meeting the market where they need me. So they don't need me for a 12-month booking, but it's how do I help them with this smaller budget for 1 month while at the same time not over delivering? Because if I'm giving them what I was giving them before for this much less money, there's not enough time to do that with as many more people for small projects. So yeah, I guess what I've always done, which is to just keep adapting, keep coming up with new offerings. If they need a cheaper offering, what is that? And to make sure that I'm not over delivering, because there will be a day where the money is back and the 12-month bookings are back, and you can't have discounted yourself to the point where you'll never be able to charge those prices again. So I'm very mindful of that. And it's just, that is a constant thing. How can I help people for what they can spend at the moment, but without devaluing what I can offer? Just because they can't afford it doesn't mean that I need to discount it, because if they can't afford it, they can't afford it. But sometimes there is a middle ground that can be found where I can be helping them for less money. And obviously, I still want to be making money. I can't just say, well, no, unless you have a 12-month booking, I refuse to speak to you. I mean, it's just not realistic in business. So yeah, constant juggling, finding the midpoint that works for my clients and for me in keeping my business healthy and going.
That's really excellent advice. I think so many of us, myself included, you hold out for that big partnership that's going to work and, that's going to be there long term because Lord knows, one thing we all want to achieve as small business owners is that assurity of income and, that longer term partnership. If you're in a that sort of content and advertiser integration model is the ideal. But yeah, it's finding that balance between taking those short term opportunities, but looking at that, okay, how can we do that? But I'm not over servicing, or instead of, yes, accepting a smaller budget, but not for the same work, for less delivery as well, and meeting in the middle there. It's excellent advice.
Well, it's, I like to say it's because I'm so smart, but I just think it's what you realize over time. And, I also have a great sort of money mentor in someone called Justine McLean, who I work with. And she, I think, has helped me a lot with that, with pricing and with not, the temptation to discount in this economy it's big because you just want to get the money in, but you have to hold your ground a bit there because you can end up doing more harm than good by just discounting, but still giving the same deliverables.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And there's so much to be said for that pricing strategy as well, in terms of how they feel about you and what happens when the money does come back, because these things do swing in roundabouts. You're exactly right. So you have shared so much today in our chat about the inside of your business. I love that you've pivoted and brought something new on that's still in line with things that you're passionate about, but a little bit different. Pushing yourself in that way to grow and to evolve and prioritizing whatever needs to happen to make sure that your business can keep thriving. I think that's absolutely the key takeaway for me in hearing your story. That's the priority. We make these things, these businesses, we create these jobs for ourselves. How do we keep them going? How do we get out of our own way to keep them going as well? So that has been such a gift to be able to share. In return, what can me, the listener, what can we do to support you to keep growing?
Well, you can follow me on Instagram. You can find me at Interiors Addict on Instagram. You could subscribe to my newsletter, which you can do that via the website. And I guess all content creators would like people to engage with their sponsored content because that's how brands get results. But you obviously don't want to ask people just go and click on anything paid, but you hope that people will come and become a follower and organically gel with what you're producing. So yeah, if you love your home and you'd like to know how to make it better without spending a fortune, then please come and follow me wherever you find me online. I'm pretty easy to find.
Now, normally my temptation would be to, not add something in at this point, but you have just triggered such a thought for me. That is so true in user behavior. I do the same when I see sponsored content. That, I appreciate it. Good client integration. It's been my job for, 15 odd years. I love it. But there's something about seeing that something is a partnership that is psychologically like you think that doesn't need your extra support. Because you've watched it, but like that needs support more than anything. Like that is how you get everything else. And also that is often so well delivered and so well integrated into the content you're used to consuming, again, at no cost to you. So really great reminder to hit the like and save and comment button on if you see it as SponCon, get over that hump to being like, oh, this person's been paid for this, so therefore like they don't need my interaction or whatever. It's spicy.
You're right, because as a reader of other things, I know exactly what you mean by that. But it's like, hey guys, I can't give you the free content if I don't get paid by the people that I'm making this sponsored content for. So yeah, that's kind of like, this is how it works. That's how you can pay me for all the free content.
Yeah, legit. And anyone who's listening who wants to sponsor this show and get me to make some excellent sponsored content, hit me up. I am all for that. You're exactly right. But yeah, Jen, it's been amazing to chat with you about your journey and to continue watching it thrive. I will make sure the links are in the show notes so that the listener can go and follow and subscribe and get around all of your beautiful content. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today and talking about your business. I so appreciate it.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you for listening to Unemployed and Afraid, the podcast for small business builders with your host, me, Kim Curtin. If you love it, you can say thanks with a star rating and a review. And of course, join the community on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Find us at Unemployed and Afraid wherever you're hanging out, and I'll see you there.